Wow, what an amazing atmosphere here right in the heart of Sydney at such an amazing time in our industry specifically and in the Red Hat, obviously, journey in redefining what we saw 25 years ago, the open source industry, and right now redefining really the hybrid cloud and the cloud industry with what we've seen, some of those amazing technologies and innovation. As part of my job, I actually get to travel quite a bit across the APAC region. I get to see amazing presentations. And one of these amazing presentations caught my attention was the Prime Minister, the Honorable Prime Minister of Singapore, last month in actually the GovTech Stack developer event. And I thought that was a great summation of the status of our industry, where we're at, specifically for those complex environments that we live in, and painting a journey of what needs to happen basically to transform ourselves. Just have a listen.
Good morning to everybody. Very delighted to be here to join you for this inaugural GovTech Stack Developer Conference. We have here more than 1,000 developers, designers, and product leaders from all over the world, both public and private sectors present with us. The vision is vast, but we're working on several specific strategic projects to focus our effort. One of these projects is to re-engineer our government. And we have a lot of work to do on this front, and let me explain why. Firstly, because we were early adopters of technology, so we now have many legacy IT systems built up over the years in different government agencies. And these enterprise IT systems have to be maintained and upgraded. As technologies advance, as policies change, systems must be modified, built upon, brought up to date, fixed. And this is an endless task. You could even say it's a Sisyphean task. Second, we must apply new technologies and develop solutions to new problems. Often the technology for these applications is not complex, but the re-engineering and redesign of processes requires a lot more work and a deep understanding of the end user's perspective. Thirdly, we have to revamp our existing IT infrastructure in order to fully exploit the potential of new technology. In particular, we have to learn how to take maximum advantage of cloud technology. Finally, we will fundamentally transform how we develop government software and applications.
There were four main things that the Prime Minister spoke about, and just to summarize them, I'm not sure how many of you basically picked up those 4 points, but the first point was about re-engineering. Just a show of hands, how many of you actually know what Sisyphean task means? Okay, a few of you. This is just a small video actually, just to describe what that means for those of you who don't know. Basically what it means is this eternal curse that basically is put on you by the gods to roll up this big stone, and by the time you roll it up, it has to come down. And I'm sure many of us in enterprise organizations feel probably with that in terms of by the time we end up finishing a task, it's rolling back down and we have to constantly keep doing it. I thought it was quite an interesting point by the Prime Minister. Second one is leveraging new technologies, specifically the technologies around AI, machine learning, and so on and so forth, to be able to speed up the delivery to the citizens, as he's put it, or to obviously our consumers and constituents in here. The third point, which is absolutely critical, and he spoke about it a little bit in the re-engineering part, is at some point these systems stop working. You probably need to re-platform them. You need to actually look at new ways to speed up these things. And ultimately, with the fourth point, it's all about transforming how you develop and deliver software in a scalable fashion, but at the same time, bringing your people along in terms of how to do it from a process perspective. The key 5 points I thought were quite encompassing of my message, so I thought it's actually very good to hear it from the Prime Minister. So in other words, every company needs to become a software company. Nobody put it better than the CEO of GE, who said, we need to go back to school to learn how to become software companies. And it's not just about mobile or web-based applications. Now, we've seen a bit earlier on from Deloitte, there's now multi-point, multi-touch, and multi-sense environments where these applications are quite complex, both from the front end with all the different sensing capabilities, all the different delivery models, but also in a back-end capabilities with all the complexity of the back-end that needs to work, ultimately to help you deliver perfect software experiences, because your customers and consumers and citizens expect a lot, and their tolerance level, specifically in the digital world, it is unbelievable. As a matter of fact, in the digital world, their tolerance level is 100 times less tolerant than in the physical world. Now, when you see somebody, maybe you're a bit more tolerant, but when you're in the digital world, you're a lot less tolerant, and that level of tolerance leads to impacts to your business from a government perspective, lack of adoption, and so on and so forth. But by 80%, very high number, would they have options, basically choose to not continue to do business, because the last best experience you have anywhere becomes your minimum expectations everywhere. You think about the last time you had a great experience and next time you went somewhere else. My name is Rafi Katanash. I'm the CTO for Dynatrace across APAC. I'm passionate about sport, technology, philosophy, and people, which I love actually coming and speaking to a lot of you in here. And for the last 20, 25 years, I've worked for various startups, specifically in connecting the dots between technology and the business through the first generation of business service management. What I want to talk to you about is basically the journey and what it takes to transform. It's easy to say autonomous cloud, as the title that I basically said, specifically when you're talking about legacy environments, complex environments. So what is it that is needed to transform? And actually, I'm going to share with you some of our story at Dynatrace. And this is a picture from our network operating system back about 4 years ago. And what you'll notice about this picture is there's no people, basically, in it. So about 12 months ago, when we moved offices, this is a real picture of our NOC, basically. We don't have any people, because what we've done is we've gone into this transformation journey and automated as much as possible. Basically, now it's a game room. This is a real picture from it. And the analogy that I want to use as I'm going through if you want, the framework of transforming to an autonomous world is the clear analogy of autonomous car. We've seen in the 1800s with the combustion engine, with Carl Benz commercializing that. And since then, it took until the mid-90s with improvements and capability, basically upgrades, until we saw the hybrid engine, basically, between combustion and electric, and until we saw the rise of cloud, AI, and specifically software, basically, which transform the capabilities that enable what you basically cannot have, an autonomous car without artificial intelligence and all the sensory and all that sort of a brain, if you want, the central nervous system that's able to drive the decisions. And the same thing if you want the evolution to autonomous cloud. We've seen in the first generation capabilities where static application, relatively speaking, running on static infrastructure. That over a period of time has evolved with service-oriented architectures and so on, some improvements to still static infrastructure, three-tier architecture was the term, but complex application, these monolith-based applications that we spoke about. And with the rise of cloud and cloud computing, as well as microservices now and artificial intelligence, and specifically the advancements in software and artificial intelligence, the first thing is it makes the autonomous cloud possible, but the complexity, of course, across both the application stack and the infrastructure stack becomes extremely, extremely high. So what's needed is really you need a platform underneath it all. This is sort of a summation of it. If you want, underneath at the bottom, you need a platform, like a hybrid cloud platform that's able to work across the entire stack that you've got, able to connect the dots between all these pieces. But you also need the automation layer, which I think you saw a great demonstration of it a bit early on. But what's missing in this picture is the central nervous system, the brain and the artificial intelligence, not so much just at the platform layer, but across all the sensory pieces, from the application to the customer experience, to the services, to all the processes, everything across it, to read all of that data, learn it, and have all the sensors, and then have the artificial intelligence pretty much drive those decisions to help you connect all of the dots. So these three pieces if you double click on them, you end up with an additional 2 dimensions, which is basically about the people and the customers. So you add these 3 dimensions, but you can't forget about the people side of it, as well as obsessing. I love this term from AWS, actually obsessing about the customer and the customer experience. Because ultimately, all this technology is really to drive a customer experience and obsession and the delivery of that capability. So these are the 5 items I want to drill a little bit into each one. We're starting with the cloud. And in a normal large enterprise, we've seen, it's almost like archaeology, right? You've got all these various pieces. You know, you started off with virtualized systems. Some virtualization even exists on the mainframe, believe it or not. And infrastructure as a service, container as a service, platform as a service, function as a service. Right now, even platforms like OpenShift is integrating some of those capabilities in cloud services. But the challenge with something like this, these things work in an isolated fashion. And what Red Hat and the Red Hat OpenShift platform brings is the ability to connect those dots across these entire, regardless of where you're running that workload, it's all connected, it's all running in the same platform that you can manage it all. But how do you get there? I mean, you've got so much legacy applications, so much environment. You need almost like a roadmap to actually get there. That starts with understanding your existing environment, and then understanding which pieces of that existing environment you actually want to transform and move into sort of a cloud architecture. And then, from a business perspective, the most important thing is to demonstrate your ability that you're in control of what you're doing. Because if something goes wrong, just like in the days when we virtualized, when something went wrong, people blame the virtualization. Now, as you move into a cloud architecture, people will blame the cloud, specifically the business people. So unless you have a way of being able to dig deep into that and provide the value back to the business, you're going to miss the business buy-in in this process. So that your effort will become not as worth it. And operating things, and ultimately, it's not about migrating. It's not about moving that workload from A to B. It's about transforming how you actually do it, improving that constantly. So if you stop in the 4th point, you're actually missing a lot of the reasons behind actually transforming into this agile world. So this is the view of it. Basically, you need to discover the entire piece, from the infrastructure to the data centers, to the processes, to the containers, to the pods, to the services, to the processes, to the applications. Understand the relationships both vertically and horizontally across that pieces. And then be able to answer the question, where am I going to move it? What kind of workload do I want to move where? So baseline that thing from the customer experience perspective. Understand how you deliver that to your existing customers today. You could be running on a VMware workload. How does this vMotion sort of thing work, and how you're going to transform those? How is the customer experience before and then after you actually transformed it? Have you improved the customer experience into that? And then when it is out there, when it is in production, it's about letting the AI do the work for you and the heavy lifting in terms of, okay, well, here's the business impact, here's the root cause, and basically to try and sift through all of that and let the AI give you all the data and all the answers, actually, not the data. But one of the biggest mistakes I see as people transition to a cloud environment is they're almost migrating existing tools. It's almost like taking software from a 1980 or 1990 car and putting it onto a Tesla. It's not going to work. I guarantee you it isn't going to work. It's got to be by design, built for that native environment. Otherwise, it isn't going to work. So you need an all-encompassing. You can't sticky tape things together. I'm going to get this tool from here and that tool from there and this tool from here. You need a way of putting all of these cohesively together and getting the answers that you need to drive the agility. Otherwise, you're going to have more people getting overwhelmed and overloaded with the complexity of basically the system that they're trying to run, you're trying to run. And ultimately, as you get to that point where you want to transform those applications, potentially you want to start taking advantage of microservice-based architecture. You want to lift the lid and understand how is it currently working? What does that monolith look like, right? Virtually break it up. Right? Understand, is it tightly coupled applications? Are those services that are in the monolith tightly coupled? And if they are, it doesn't make much sense to break them up in a microservices because you're going to have a bigger problem of the network latency rather than within the monolith is service calls basically being called. And ultimately, even as you go into serverless, and I'm not sure how many of you are on the journey, but there's quite a few, at least in ANZ, customers that I speak to, Ultimately, you still own the customer experience, you still own the service delivery back to your business. So ultimately, you need that same experience and understanding how these. Now, I guarantee you, serverless runs in containers on servers. And so you still need to be able to see how these things are being delivered. Are they delivering the business function that you're actually delivering to your customers? And the biggest question I get when I travel across APAC is this AI. There's a lot of myth, a lot of discussion, specifically in various areas of AI. But when I talk about AI in this autonomous cloud, I'm defining it in a very structured fashion. And the reason that we really need AI in the first place is specifically if you go into these container environments and these fluid architectures, the complexity level becomes horrendous, absolutely horrendous. A single transaction can traverse millions upon millions of systems and dependencies. Actually, billions, not just millions. I'll show you an example right now. This is a picture from Phoenix, Arizona. About 2 years ago, 2016, I was running through the US doing a presentation. And I just happened to see this picture just before my presentation. And looks like a mushroom cloud basically coming through. And I had a screenshot from one of our product basically that showed a problem identification that looked like a mushroom cloud. So I thought it was very, very connect. And if you look at it basically, you've got all of the hosts and all of the virtualization, all the pods, a couple of clusters basically here we're running, containerized clusters, processes, containers, services, ended up being, and get this, 820 billion dependencies to be able to understand what the root cause of that problem is. 820 billion, not million, billion dependencies. And the root cause of this happened to be a Docker container connectivity issue, TCP connectivity issue in Docker container. Now imagine a human trying to decipher all of that and coming up to a problem like this. Just almost impossible. I'm not going to say impossible, almost impossible to be able to do it in this sort of cases. So what exactly is this AI that I'm talking about? What exactly is it? This is a slide from Gartner last year, actually, talking about all these big buzzwords, machine learning, deep learning, all that sort of stuff. Now, the AI needs to have 3 main use cases to work in this environment. The first use case, it has to be real time. It can't be 2 days later, which is a real-time system. So you cannot wait until it learns for 2 days. It has to do it almost immediately. The second thing, this AI has to be highly accurate. Now, if this AI is 60% accurate, some AI systems are good enough, maybe 60% or 70%. In this autonomous cloud, otherwise you're automating garbage. Garbage in, garbage out. This AI needs to be highly accurate, 99% plus accurate, if not more, in terms of the accuracy level. Otherwise, people aren't gonna trust it. And the third item for this, the AI has to be automated. It can't be people, playing with it, fine-tuning it, and doing all these items. It's got to work out of the box. It's got to be automated. Otherwise, you're not going to keep up with this complexity problem. 820 billion dependencies. Imagine trying to set manual rules across all of that to make sure that the AI works. Impossible to work in here. So there are the 4 fundamentals areas of AI. Is the discovery, as I mentioned, understanding both horizontal and vertical relationships. High fidelity data that's connected in context of the end user, in context of the transaction, from the customer experience all the way to the services, processes, the pods and the clusters and Kubernetes and so on and so forth, and underneath it all, including the networking layer as well. And then, and only then, you can apply AI algorithms on top of it that is use case centric to be able to solve this problem. Otherwise, you're going to be spending and having a lot of expertise. Actually, Gartner said, I think there's only 150 worldwide experts in AI. This is not 150,000, 150. Now imagine trying to get those people into your organization, how expensive it is. So you need very specific algorithms that's able to work across those use cases. To ultimately, the use case for AI is twofold. One is to automate accuracy, answers. The other one is to augment your people to be able, because some decisions still need to be made by your people, by your team. So automation and augmentation is the 2 key things. Now, moving to automation, this is our story at Dynatrace, actually. We used to be releasing, like any traditional waterfall type releases, twice a year, every 6 months. Our mission was to actually go to 1 hour to production, right? So now, our mission is to actually now automate by shifting everything left, shifting everything up, and shifting everything. So left as much to the developer, up as close to the customer, down as close to the code, and to the right as close to operations as possible. So as people, we saw the automation of Ansible being able to deploy things into production very quickly. But the missing piece in that is the quality. You can automate that, but without the right quality, you're going to be missing stuff. So you need automated quality gateways that's able, the artificial intelligence, to be able to say, okay, yeah, move on to the next one, move on to the next one. The Toyota sort of factories used to have people who used to stop the factory line. You know, if something goes wrong, stop the factory line, and anyone was empowered. Now, in our world, the analogy here is let the AI basically be that stop or progress basically forward. And then as you're into production, let the AI engine, and then now leverage both the platform underneath it and things like Ansible Tower and Ansible, basically to help drive that automation. We have a great demonstration outside if you're actually interested in seeing how this really works in the real world across the, the full stack of things. And ultimately, it's all about the customers and the customer experience. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm sick of getting all these surveys. After every experience, I do a survey, basically. And they don't offer you any incentive, basically, to do it. Do it, and we might call you. And depending on the mood that I'm in, I might answer the survey. But you guys have got all of my data anyway. It's all digital, and all the data is available. Why don't you tell me what my customer experience is? Why don't you tell me what the problem is? So how about sitting in your customer's shoes, being able to see everything that your customer basically is doing, and being able to almost replay in a high-quality definition, fast forward to the points of interest where your customers are actually getting things, and then using that data to help various use cases. You know, use cases across operational. If someone calls in, I've got a problem, you can see exactly what's going on. And then leverage AI on top of that data to be able to tell you, are your customers digitally, through sifting it digitally, tolerating, satisfied, or frustrated? Are they really doing what you want them to be doing on your digital assets? Are they converting? Are they buying? Are they productive? Are they repeat users and all that sort of thing? And if not, that's only the what. If not, then why? Why aren't they doing it? Is it a technology issue? Is it a touch point issue, a browser, a device, a sense point issue? Or is it a back-end system, maybe a database, maybe a code, maybe a transaction issue? So having all the teams empowered with the same data, with the customer centricity, it becomes absolutely critical. So with the answers in there. And the final point is probably one that's absolutely critical, because you can have all these pieces, but you need to bring your teams along. And it's easier said than done. You hear people talk about DevOps or biz DevOps and all that sort of stuff, and say, okay, just go and do it. It needs both a structural changes, potentially, in your organization, and it needs empowerment. And I'll tell you what we've done in Dynatrace to actually empower those things. First thing we've done is we were structured like many organizations, both in these various silos. And what we've done in this case is we've tilted that literally about 90 degrees on its side. And then we've created these basically product teams with business outcomes across all these verticals. And on the right-hand side now, I've put platform team in there. But what they really are, they're a product management team that's in charge of delivering the platform and in charge of the automation. The reason we were able to get rid of the NOC is because of that team that's basically delivered us the platform and did the whole automation. So all they do is automation and the capability, and everything else is self-service. And so the developers have ownership across the entire cycle, and so is the platform team working in collaboration. But to enable the power of these teams to work together, this is not enough just to structurally change it. You need to empower them with the right metrics and the right data and the right capabilities. And what we've done is we wanted to release the AI to help these teams collaborate in a better way. And we came up with 3 main innovations in the process of doing it. I'm going to share with you these innovations. The first innovation is this thing that we're demonstrating outside. We call them a UFO. It's a simple device. One of our innovators, actually, that's his picture there, wearing the white coat. He basically used a 3D printer, and he created these, what we call UFO. And what you're seeing here is a picture of this UFO in front of the coffee machines. As the developer potentially checks in his code, he goes out to get a coffee. just looks up there and says, oh, I've just broken the trunk, or I've just broken my production environment. All these metrics basically are transparent across that thing. And we've created them in these strategic points of the office. One is in the coffee machines, in the hallway, and maybe one that is a bit cheeky, we put it on the exit points of the building. So someone is just exiting, going home, looking up, says, okay, is everything all right? Have I broken it? Or do I go back in there to actually, work on code? I don't want to be woken up, at 2 a.m. in the morning or something like that. The other key one, and this is one where people initially thought it's a gimmick in terms of, releasing the power of this AI using the verbal interaction. I think we saw from Deloitte's, will be probably mainstream by 2020. But this is the fastest growing, actually, UI in Dynatrace. Is the UI-based capability. Simple questions, human language, humanize this technology. How many customers are using my system? How many customers will I have in 30 minutes? How many customers are impacted? What was this feature that I've just rolled yesterday working? How many people were using it, adopting it? So use it in stand-ups. We use it in the CIO potential offices. Actually, when we show it to CIOs, they actually want one of them because now they can actually shortcut the answers. They can get it directly. And it works in a two-way interaction, actually. So if you're using the latest Alexa tools, it'll be able to interact back with you. And we're experimenting with augmented reality. This is early days, but I'm just going to show you a quick video. It's like a 30 seconds or so video of what it looks like using a HoloLens from Microsoft HoloLens, basically. Just take a look.
After analyzing the problem, I identified an overloaded database node as root cause of the problem. The commit at 2:35 increased the number.
So this is just early days, but basically, people can automatically collaborate. I call it augmented collaboration. Basically, you go 3D dive inside your systems. You can see your customers. You can see basically transaction tracing across the entire system. And you let the AI basically is talking you through it. And you can make decisions as you're going through it. We're working with our top 20 customers globally to understand specific real-life use cases that can apply to them. And hopefully at some point in the next 12, 18 months, we'll be releasing some productized version of these things. We were demoing real prototypes of this about 6 months ago at our Perform conference. So just to finish up here is, I think there was a quote from the Prime Minister that I thought was quite a neat one. IT can no longer be an afterthought. It has to be intrinsic to everything that we do, intrinsic to our work, intrinsic to the culture, basically, that we do within the organization in here. And, we work with Red Hat really, really closely at the global level and at the local level over here. And the reason we're standing up here, of course, we've got strong relationships. One of the award winners early on in the day is our customers, and actually they're applying great technologies from both Red Hat, Ansible, as well as Dynatrace, as you can see in here. And they've also gone on the journey of transforming their structural stuff in there. So this is a quote from the actually OpenShift, Chris Morgan, Technical Director for OpenShift ecosystem, basically just saying how great Dynatrace is. But don't take my word, don't take his word for it. We're living the digital world. Download things for yourself. Experience things for yourself and see whether everything that we're talking about is real or fancy in here. For those of you that have your bags, how many times you go to conferences, you go back with all these toys, home, and then you end up having them in the bin, right? So we've actually decided to this time to put these things to a worthy cause. So we've printed, if you find these things in your bags in here, so if you've got them in your bags, we've got these very worthy charities from the Red Cross to the Rural Aid and the UNICEF. You can put it in the charity of choice, and we'll donate, I think, $3 for every one of these tokens that goes into the charity of choice that you have. And just to finish up, I'm going to finish up with a little video that we've done called See the Magic, basically. Done to sort of a nice background music. Just have a listen. Great to connect with you here, and look forward to actually meeting you outside or throughout the day. Thank you.
Somebody gonna tell you what can be done. Somebody gonna tell you